First and foremost, Scoop, how's everything going?
So far, so good, man. Thank you for having me. That's big pressure being contestant number one. So thank you for having me, brother.
No problem. Before we get started, I want to start with all my guests this way, considering the podcast is called Designated for Greatness, and the greatness that you have accomplished and achieved and have been, sulked in. What do you believe, Scoop, your ultimate designation on here, planet Earth, is to do or to be?
To be a blessing to those who have been a blessing to me, and I think that in this day and age where it's all about self. Part of it is, but the majority of it is using your voice, using your. I know everybody uses the word platform, but just using your energy to uplift those who come behind you, but also you're building your purpose, or if you find your purpose and you're blessed to find it, it's your responsibility to edify the world with creativity, with culture, and also processing the good news, the gospel. So whatever that is for you, I know for me, I've known what it was for a long time, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I love that. Reason I decided to name this podcast Designated for Greatness is I am a lifelong, journalist at heart, right? I grew up on, Stuart Scott, and the other guys who came after him. And I went to school for journalism, but I ended up in education. So I'm a full-time teacher while still practicing journalism full-time because that's always been my passion. And in baseball, when people get designated for assignment, that's usually when a team no longer wants a player and they kind of like put them on the waiver wire, I guess the term for that. And then they end up, wherever they end up. And I feel like for me, I don't know exactly what I am designed to do. It's still something that I'm trying to put together, figure out, but I feel like whatever it is, greatness will lie within it. So that's why I decided to name it that. So I appreciate you definitely giving me your explanation of what you feel like you are designed to be here on Earth to do.
Sure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To get started right away, so you are a NBA insider / reporter. You have been going at this for a while. Scoop, I gotta ask you, man. I've seen this picture of you. I think you actually posted it last week or something like that. You look like you've been doing journalism or a reporter since you were in junior high school. How old were you when you got started into the business?
12.
Oh, wow. How did that go about?
I've always been around basketball. I through grassroots basketball in Harlem. My uncle was commissioner of parks at Riverbank State Park, and so citywide basketball league was played there in Harlem, and Stephon Marbury, Rod Strickland, Bernard King, Mark Jackson, you name it, they've played in it. And I used to just watch my uncle just be around basketball. So that was connected to like the Sprite Junior Knicks League back in the day, and that was kind of my foundation basketball wise. Between that and my family running two successful shoe businesses on 125th Street in Harlem, and one was a sneaker store, the Athlete's Foot, which was the only Black-owned Athlete's Foot in New York State. And, so we would do sneaker releases where, in between selling shoes, of course, Dominique Wilkins, Hakeem Olajuwon, Spud Webb, all those guys would come in and do sneaker releases for various shoes. Brooks sneakers was what they wore back in the day, and they would do those releases at the Athlete's Foot. And, basically, that was kind of, if not to sound blasphemous, that kind of baptized me into basketball, so to speak. And, what ended up happening was my mom's friend, Alicia, had told my mother about an audition that they were having for kids to do commercials with the Crash Dummies. And so it was at Chelsea Pier, Manhattan. And the audition killed the first audition. Second audition was at Dangerfield's Comedy Club. And, basically, I think I was picked like one of 8 kids who would be radio personalities for Oswald Radio, which is now defunct. They recorded out of Liberty Science Center in Jersey City.
Okay.
And, essentially we did like a commercial we take with the Crash Dummies. And then the Nets were looking for new talent at the time. They had rebranded with the new logo. Keith Van Horn was their first round pick. And basically they were looking for a kid reporter to host a show called Nets Slamming Planet with a woman named Lynn Wilson and Albert King, who played for the Nets for years, and was executive produced by Chris Carino, who's now the voice of the Nets. And basically, my sister, I'll always remember, was 1 year old, was in a stroller. My mom and I went over to the Nets practice facility, then in East Rutherford, and they took a liking to me. Had a background in basketball. My stepfather, the NBA game, had introduced me to it by a gentleman with a bald head back in 1991 named Michael Jordan. And I watched the NBA on NBC, and I was hooked ever since. And that's kind of my foundation. Before I stepped foot on a college campus, I had been around the NBA and, have just always liked the game, liked the culture, and everything that came with it.
So that's extremely interesting that you confirmed that you were in junior high school, because I'm like, nah, Scoop looks really young there. That does not look like a college student or even a high school student who is getting these quality internships. So with that said, what took you away from, trying to be an athlete yourself to wanting to cover it? Because I know you were around the sport, but I could imagine most people who are around the sport are naturally trying to play it. What made you decide to step, behind the microphone to be in that aspect of the sport?
I have flat feet, 1. 2, I had friends who played, even in prep school. I have friends that are taller than me. I'm 6'5". I have friends that are 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot. In high school, I was 6'3", and I felt short compared to some of my classmates that went on to play Division I basketball and more. And to be honest with you, I wasn't as good as some of those guys. And I realized my purpose early. I could play. At times I'd practice with my high school basketball team at Don Bosco, but it wasn't really my thing as it related to talent wise, but I understood the game because I had been around it for so young. So figured once you figure out your purpose and you're not trying to put a ton of wear and tear in your body, and you just know what it is, you proceed with it. So for me, high school, college, intramurals, but I was spending my time, as the sports editor for the high school newspaper, had my own column, was, public address announcer and DJ for the games. Had a lot of fun with that in undergrad and grad school. So I played for fun, still do when I can, but my calling was in asking questions. My calling was in telling stories. And I think when you have that practice being around athletes and knowing how they talk, you speak their language, and it's not, and it just right off the bat inclusive fraternity that you're in once you're around athletes. So when they trust you, that I feel like that I had that practice early on as a kid,
right,
and being around New York and New Jersey basketball, and also just having that practice in high school. I went to 2 different high schools. So for me, by the time I got to high school, I kind of knew, that's what I was going to do. Ahmad Rashad had featured me when I was a kid on Inside Stuff. And, I got a chance to sit down with him and learn his story. And he was somebody that I really related to.
Wow. See, to me, that's amazing, because most 12, 13-year-olds are still believing, they can make it to the league. So to be able to grasp your truth and, okay, I may be okay at this, but I feel like I can do something else, maybe even a higher level. Because even with me, I didn't get into, I knew I wanted to be a journalist, but out of high school, I studied it, but I didn't take it on in high school. I wasn't working for my high school newspaper or writing for my high school newspaper. I never thought about that. I was still, trying to be on the field and trying to be on the basketball court, on the diamond, and stuff like that playing. So kudos to you. And I think that is a message that even now I relate to my students. You don't have to think one way. You don't have to feel like you have to be the next LeBron James to be successful, because the odds are actually very slim to none.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of pressure just in reporting and getting stuff done. You got to, I think, time management, deadlines, Now my role at Bally Sports Network, I have something going on every day. The Suns, it's funny, the Suns and the Bucks are playing and at this point. And, the crazy thing is I built a relationship with Michael Redd last fall at my last stop at heavy.com, where they gave me a show called Heavy Live with Scoop B. And, he hasn't done much press. And, he and I have been talking about different things we're going to be doing. And, I met digitally during the pandemic, Sean Marion. And we've been talking, and I've got some stuff moving there. So it's like relationship building is its own entity as far as just getting to know people. And, also just with social media and people being able to access you, you get I understand the mind of an athlete a lot because you get harassed and trolled all day on social media.
Yeah.
You're trolling me a little bit on Instagram today, and you got to know how to, it's like being at the free throw line and knowing how to tune out noise and just, all that good stuff. But it's with every profession, there's peaks and valleys and twists and turns. And you just, once you're practiced and know what you're doing, the constant repetition just becomes easier. It's like running drills. It's like shooting drills. It's like, all of those different defensive slides, all of that. It all is part of, where you want to be. So, LeBron James and I are the same age. We were both being charted at 12 years old, just in different professions. And that's, I think wild. That, at 12 years old, 12, 13, 14 years old, that's when, he started playing AAU. And at 12, 13 years old, that's when I started doing radio with the Nets. So it's just a constant grind and just, sticking with it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the relationship aspect of, media and journalism, because I follow you really closely. I have for a few years now. And how do you find yourself navigating through when you're either reporting a rumor, right? A rumor to us, but information for you, or when a player from the relationships you've developed gives you some information that you got to either sit on or report it, with the risk of that player being like, wow, really?
Every case is different, and it depends on who's walking that information to you. So, you said you've been following me for a few years. Kyrie Irving is a prime example of that. 2019, I guess you could say the end of June, early July was when he committed. I'm joining the Brooklyn Nets officially.
Right.
I probably knew January, February. I think it's all about just timing, like putting hints out. And then, continuing to ride the wave of stories. So a lot of times it just depends on the relationship. Are you cool? So I'll give you an example. There are some reporters or insiders who deal directly with front office. And then there are some who deal directly with the players.
Right.
And then there's some who deal directly with the agents.
Right. I feel like I can identify, based on what you're telling me, certain teams and certain, I feel like Rose would be someone who works with the front offices, right? And I feel like Chris Haynes is a player's guy. And I feel like Shams might be a little bit of both with the agents and the players, because he has really good relationships with agencies as well. So that's what I was doing.
So let me ask you a question. Where do you put Scoop B in that mix?
I feel like you're a people person, because I follow you. Again, I see you interact with players, and I've seen you just about at every basketball event and with different people. So I feel like players will be more comfortable talking to you than they would certain people, because you've never plain put somebody's rumor out there and said, well, this person told me, right? You do it the journalistic way. Sources tell me this, sources tell Bally Sports this, or at the time heavy.com, and this of that nature. So I feel like it's a balance of both when it comes to Scoop. But there's one rumor you put out there that I was praying was right. The Kevin Durant one, which you got some backlash for with LeBron James to the Lakers. And I feel like there was something there, because Stephen A. Smith reported the same thing, right? But he didn't get as much backlash. I don't know why that was, but I do. That is one rumor that you've put out that I was like, please make it true, because I'm a Laker fan. So obviously I want that.
Well, I'll tell you what. So you're not going to strike it all the time. And I think it was how I phrased it. So what I'll tell you is I said in my tweet, I spoke to a source who confirmed. The word confirm is a very strong,
right,
infinite word. So if you go back to when I put that out, I'll never forget it. It was September 17th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
My sister's birthday is September 17th. And while I'm wishing her a happy birthday on Instagram, people in my comments talking about Kevin Durant. It's like, I think it was in that moment that I realized that people were really paying attention.
Right.
But this is what I'll tell you. One, at the time, I wasn't at a network. So they're looking like, who is this? With all of the success or early start that I had, I'm talking to a whole new digital audience that was not ready available in 97, 98 when I started. Two, the word confirmed was excuse my French, that's what fucked me up.
Yeah.
And then I'll add that, but I'll add this. It was a learning experience, but I'll also add this. I think that I had such a running start in 2018. So we're in 2021. The LeBron James Space Jam movie is out this week.
I remember that. Yeah, you did hit that.
I was telling y'all not only that LeBron James was going to the Lakers, but that he was going to use the Space Jam 2 movie to announce his decision, which I will still tell you was supposed to happen. They changed the script.
Yeah.
With a fax type look, which was a press release saying, I'm going to the Los Angeles Lakers. And there's a lot of things that go in that I don't want to put other people out there, but as it relates to Kevin Durant, it was a conversation. I will tell you that not only in 2018 did I share with you that LeBron was going to the Lakers and that Space Jam was going to happen, I also told you in October of 2018 that Anthony Davis was going to join the Los Angeles Lakers.
You did.
And that trade did commence June 19th, 2019. So you're not going to get it right all the time. I'll also tell you that Kawhi Leonard was seriously considering joining the Los Angeles Lakers, and the only reason why he did not, and he ultimately joined the Clippers, was because the Clippers and the Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to commence that trade for Paul George. If Paul George did not join the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard would have joined the Los Angeles Lakers.
I believe that because there's a reporter, I will not say his name, but he works at Fox Sports. Him and I have a really good relationship as well. He told me it is 99.99999% done. I'm on vacation at this point. I think I was in Antigua. And I'm like, bro, is this really happening? Because every sign was pointing to it was going to get done. And then he was like, I am 99.9% sure of that Kawhi will sign with the Lakers unless something unforeseen, just crazy happens. And of course, the unforeseen happens and he doesn't sign with the Lakers. But I wholeheartedly believe that because people that I trust really told me that. And I was really, really, really believing that he was going to get it through that.
But here's the thing. One, I had a conversation with Kevin Durant about that at a party, the whole Lakers thing, and I'll leave that there. We talked about it, but as it relates to the things that I did get right, I did come back and tell you that KD was going to join the Nets.
Yeah,
I knew that he and Kyrie were a package deal.
Yeah.
Two, I told you about Paul George's rotator cuff.
Yeah.
There's a myriad of other things. I told you Dennis Smith Jr. was going to get traded to the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
And I can go on and on in a day. And I think just as things began to open up for me professionally, there's a mental part of it. Like you're becoming more recognized. You're trying to secure the bag. You're trying to, to my journey, for finishing grad school and, finishing and doing what I need to do was not like most people. I had to create my platform, Scoop B Radio, from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I had to pay overhead. I wasn't full-time somewhere. There are a lot of other factors that go into it while still just growing as a Black man. So I won't make excuses for it because it all worked out in the end. But, you learn from that and you pick and choose what you report, how you report, and, things and how they move, So it was a learning experience for sure. But glad to see it all work out, particularly as it relates to just my coverage of the Lakers. I told you J.R. Smith was going to have a workout with the Lakers.
Yeah.
That happened. And the only reason why it didn't happen as soon as it was supposed to happen was because when I reported it on January 25th, Kobe Bryant died the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I'm glad you brought up Bally Sports. I first and foremost, I want to come out and say this. I did not know what Bally Sports was. That it was a thing until you announced that you were joining Bally Sports. But previously you were at Heavy. I remember during part of my undergrad, your former editor-in-chief, Ben Duty, actually came to Southern and he was speaking to our journalism class. We were the senior class. and he was talking about, opportunities and how to put yourself out there as a reporter. And then when I connected with you on Twitter, I saw that you were working at Heavy. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, small world. But now you're at Bally. How is your role now at Bally different from what it was at Heavy?
Ben Duty's a nice guy. I will say that Heavy, I came to Heavy at a very interesting point in my career because I was previously at Basketball Society. That was right after all the stuff that I was saying about Space Jam, LeBron, and more. My role with Heavy was cool because it transitioned perfectly into that. There was really, I think most people, when they come in, they go through a training process and they're really, really looking at their process of just getting things done. And my skill set was different because I dealt directly with the stars.
Right.
Most people at that site, no disrespect, they're aggregating what other people are saying.
Yeah.
And so original content, there was definitely an adjustment because how do you, it's almost like you look at Latrell Sprewell when he joined the Knicks and when he came off the bench, he was such a dominant scorer. It's like, how do you implement a dominant scorer into that offense?
Right.
So, Heavy's very numbers driven. They encourage 1 million hits, a month. And, I remember I started, I think it was October of 2018. And I think in that month, I'd started with 2 weeks left in the month and I had 300,000 views. Like, wow, so for some people, they only get 300,000 views in a month, or,
right.
They might start out hot and cold. So I think there was an adjustment of how do I implement my digital presence into writing and get all of those things moving. So it was definitely a different adjustment. And I'll tell you that I'm thankful for Heavy because it opened doors for me financially to help friends, family, and just to put myself in a better space.
Right.
But I think where it really helped me was when the pandemic hit and, Ben saw actually what I was doing on Instagram Live, where I do interviews.
I remember
with Henry, Tahiri, and a multitude of other people, Jim Jones, Master P. And he was like, well, how can we implement that into our system? And so we started Heavy Live with Scoop B. We had everybody from Jay Williams, Stephon Marbury, Marshall Falk, Antoine Walker, and we, Kendrick Perkins. And so, you're able to get the view, Mark Cuban, you're able to get the views on their YouTube channel, but then also, you're able to implement the writing portion of it because, you want to get the views, but you also want to get picked up by major publications. So it was fusing all of those digital skill sets, the writing, the video, the audio into one component. But ultimately, Bally at this point is a better fit just from a perspective of just the numbers game is a very rigorous process. And while most people are getting their numbers, I'm trying to balance numbers and relationships and stuff getting picked up as a reporter who gets that type of stuff.
Right.
Bally is more of an organic fit in that regard. Number one, because it's a major news network or major regional news network that has a national division. And I will say that, them being the new Fox Sports Net regional definitely is definitely placates a level of success that was intriguing to me, specifically because 19 of the 30 teams that are in the NBA play on Bally Sports Network in their regional. So you look at the NBA Finals, both the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns are both Bally Sports teams. You look at the Western and the Eastern Conference Finals. The Hawks and the Clippers play on Bally as well. So it definitely was appealing to me because of the tie to the NBA, the reach, the viewership. But I'm thankful for Bally, I'm thankful for Heavy because Heavy was able to keep me in constant practice in writing. And also it transitioned me perfectly from the pandemic of being in the field and writing all the time to constantly being on camera and doing it every day and being comfortable. And I think that was a great transition because before the pandemic, I was breaking stories about Kyrie Irving's shoulder, thoracic bursitis is what they were calling it. per sources. And what I'll say is just stuff like that, stuff like Paul George rotator cuff, stuff like, just various things that I was hearing, going on the road. I was on the road a lot. So the kind of transition from that to being home and writing and doing on camera stuff and still doing it now at a new place, I'm definitely thankful and glad that Heavy was a part of that journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't help but think about, the recent things that's going on as you talk about your journey from, Heavy, from, Basketball Society to Heavy, now to Bally. There's like this uproar now amongst journalists and those who consider themselves journalists. Recently, there's a young lady who she's a TikTok star or something like that, and I think her name is Addison. And she was supposed to cover the UFC event, and she was like, "Wow, well, look at me! I had to study 3 whole months to get this job, and now I'm at one of the biggest fights, maybe in UFC history, with McGregor and Dustin." And people came up on her, and she was essentially fired or whatever because of how she termed it. Do you have an issue with where journalism is headed, where you just need to kind of like be a blogger or a YouTube star to consider yourself a journalist? For someone who's, practiced it from such a young age, does that kind of bother you or rub you the wrong way?
At times it did, and I think it more rubbed me the wrong way, where you saw TikTok stars getting credentialed to go to All-Star Weekend, and then my credentials were being revoked. I'm not at that point anymore.
Yeah,
and someone brought that to my attention, and so it's definitely a something that I've pondered. But I will say that everybody's route is different, and I won't be one of those old heads that hate. I've always tried to cheer people on and hate. And cheer people on and not hate. But I definitely think that it seems that you got to be famous in order to get in the door for certain places, and it's annoying. But everybody's road is different, and I'm sure that when they saw me in the locker room as a young kid reporter and was able to talk to players, they probably thought I was annoying. So I try to put myself in that shoe and see it from multiple lenses there. But the world is changing. Social media makes everybody more it makes people more accessible. And also, I'll add, more easily criticized. So I'm not defending him, but I'll use this as an example. Recently, Stephen A. Smith was on camera saying some stuff that people characterize as xenophobic as it related to the Asian baseball player and just not speaking English. I'll say this. It was a very, very busy weekend. That weekend, there was the NBA Finals. In between that, he was at a fight in Vegas. So he went from Vegas to Milwaukee to then First Take on Monday. I know for me, there's been times where I've said stuff either in a tweet or on camera, and I'm like, damn, I wish I could take that back. And so I just think, not defending him, but I can understand how, with so much stuff going on in one setting, sleep, time zones, or lack thereof could be an issue. One of the hardest working mans in the industry. So I just think that even with the analog folks, which he would be considered, who has made a lot of noise, but also written for over 20 years at the Philadelphia Inquirer, the New York Daily News, and then transitioned from Fox Sports to ESPN. For somebody like him who's put in a lot of work, I'm sure someone in his position could look at, who's this TikTok star? Because he's old school. And I just don't want to be that guy to just, hate on young kids, but I can see why that's frustrating to more journalists that are more veteran than me as it relates to their access and what they're trying to do. And even, people of color and publications where you don't get them in because the strength of publication is not big enough. I have a problem with that. And I think that there are some things internally that should change.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what you're saying right now resonate with me as someone who founded their own publication a few years back, after I got out of college. I worked for the school newspapers, right? I was doing, assignments that I don't even enjoy the sport. Like my first assignment, I believe, was a swim meet. Swim meets, if you've never been to one, are like 6 hours long, especially college. And I sat there in the gym for 6 hours until like midnight, making sure that I got enough work for my story the next morning. And, I talked to the players, talking to the coaches, and, from interning as well as at BSO after that, right? There was a point I was interning there. So I feel like I'm at the point where I was like, okay, let me find my own publication where I can, be able to distribute and tell stories through my lens and through the creatives that we bring along. And it is frustrating sometimes when you're seeing, someone like that be credentialed for an event that you might have applied for and were not credentialed to attend. But again, I think with her, much power to her. She can use whatever to her advantage. I think how she worded it, it was kind of like a slap in the face to everybody who's been grinding and has like 100,000 intuition to develop skills in this craft. And you're telling me all you had to do was, go to some trade school for 3 months and they told you can cover the UFC event because you have millions of followers, whatever that may be. Before I let you go, Scoop, I got a couple more things I want to ask you. Do you have the Suns? I think you have the Suns winning the finals, if I'm not mistaken.
I do.
6 games, if I'm not mistaken?
6.
Okay. Do you feel confident that tomorrow night the Suns are not going to lose and the series will be tied at 2?
I think the series is going to be tied at 2. I think this is going to be a series. I think Bobby Portis stepped up for the Bucks tremendously in the last game. And Drew Holiday has found his rhythm. 21 points, I believe he scored in the last game. And, also Brook Lopez coming alive. He was gliding to the basket like a guard the other night. I was impressed. And I think, their supporting cast. I think you're going to need to see a Pat Connaughton who was effective in the Game 2 loss and scored 14 points. He was a little quiet in Game 3, but I think that it'll kind of balance itself out. And I've said this on every show. This series is where the Milwaukee Bucks are really missing Dante DiVincenzo.
Oh, yeah.
Defensively. And Bryn Forbes is somebody that I haven't really heard from him since Game 1. I want to see him coming alive. But, you look at this Phoenix Suns team and just how they're playing. DeAndre Ayton is playing great basketball. He's been, at times playing backseat to Devin Booker's scoring prowess, and Chris Paul, who's, flirted with a triple-double the first 2 games. But Devin Booker's definitely going to have to step up in Game 4, scored 10 points in Game 3. But I think it's going to be a series, man. I think, these are 2 small markets, and it's good for basketball to see something different in addition or in comparison to, the usual suspects. Many people thought it was, a Lakers Nets or Lakers Sixers or Clippers somewhere in there. But, I spoke to someone, I spoke to a Laker the other day who shared with me, if all things were equal and folks were healthy, what time it is, it would have been a Brooklyn Lakers.
I believe it.
But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And, I do still have the Suns in 6 though.
Okay. Well, I do believe that the Lakers would have beaten the Suns had they not gotten hurt. I mean, we were up 2-1. I'm saying we, like I'm a part of the team. The Lakers were up 2-1 on the Suns, and then AD's groin goes out. And then from there, I kind of knew the Suns had a run in them. And then Kawhi gets hurt. So it's just been a weird, odd playoffs that I have not, necessarily been too fond of, because I feel like the best team is not going to win, because the best team, the second best team, the third best team, the fourth best team have all gotten hurt. But it is what it is. Like you said, that's how the cookie crumbles. Anything you're hearing right now, Scoop, in regards to free agency that's coming up in just about a couple of weeks, anything that people might not expect but might be something out there? Because Mark Stein is talking the Lakers and Lonzo might be a thing.
It's not a foregone conclusion. The Lakers are looking for a playmaker. And, Mark Stein's report is right in line with, things that I've heard, specifically, a playmaker that will make things easier for LeBron to kind of move LeBron off the ball.
Yeah.
And shift him to 3 and 4 and moving Davis 4 and 5.
Right.
So but not just him. I mean, there's the Lakers and the Toronto Raptors could revisit Kyle Lowry as it relates to a sign and trade.
Okay.
Kyle Lowry is not obligated to give the Toronto Raptors that option, but because he won a championship with them and because he spent as much time as he did. I think it would be great if they could facilitate that, but the Miami Heat are definitely still sniffing for Kyle Lowry. And I'll add that, when you look at Kawhi Leonard this offseason, if he does not resign with the Clippers, there are 3 teams that could legitimately be in the hunting to sign him. And those 3 teams include the New York Knicks, who have the cap space, who are also looking for Lonzo Ball themselves. That's 1. So 2 would be the Denver Nuggets, who I think would be a great piece to add alongside Nikola Jokic, the NBA's reigning MVP, as well. And I think, when you also look at another team that would benefit, the Miami Heat would check that box for Kawhi Leonard as well, particularly if they're able to nab Kyle Lowry and add that to a piece that is already Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. So, yeah, I definitely think you should be looking out for that. And then the other piece, Kelly Oubre. My sources have shared with me that, he could command anywhere from 20 to 30 million per this coming season. And, teams like the San Antonio Spurs, the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, and the Los Angeles Lakers are teams that are in the hunt for a defensive 3-and-D guy in Kelly Oubre. So, yeah, I definitely think that this free agency is going to be interesting. And as always, a lot of twists and turns. And I'll add, I think that the draft, this year's draft, that happens later this month, will dictate a lot of moves. You're going to see the New Orleans Pelicans, for example, really moving and grooving to kind of smooth some things around to make some things happen. Now that they've added or pretty much are sealing the deal on Willie Green as their head coach, and what they're going to do as far as pairing up whomever with Zion Williamson. Ben Simmons is also a hot ticket. I'll tell you that names like the Golden State Warriors, the Dallas Mavericks, as well as the Minnesota Timberwolves. I do have interest in Ben Simmons. And, I'll tell you that, the Sixers are looking for the best possible all-star who will be good in exchange for Ben Simmons. So right. Daryl Morey and Elton Brand are definitely in the kitchen cooking something up, and we'll see what happens.
I can't wait, man. This free agency is going to be one of the more interesting ones because a lot of teams who got hurt, like the Lakers who had a chance, I want to see now, do they completely revamp and get rid of Dennis Schroeder? Are they trading Kuzma? As I'm hearing, he's looking for a bigger role, right? Does Spencer Dinwiddie, I heard he wants to play in LA and he wouldn't mind the Lakers. Is that something that's there?
The Clippers and the Bulls would definitely be prime options. I know that the Bulls is selection one would definitely be Lonzo Ball. 1A would be Spencer Dinwiddie, or 1B. And then there was another name you said. You said Spencer Dinwiddie. Who else did you say?
Spencer Dinwiddie. I think that's all I said.
Okay. Yeah. Spencer Dinwiddie is definitely going to be a hot commodity.
Yeah.
Off season. So, particularly because at point guard, you have Kai. You have certain spots that are already filled. So it'll be interesting to see. But Brooklyn Nets can offer him a pretty decent deal.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Okay. All right, Scoop. To cap us off, this is how I would like to end the show. You are a journalist. You've been a lifelong journalist, and you're darn good at it. So from everybody who's been inspiring Scoop, or you've come across, or you've just gotten to know, I need your Mount Rushmore of journalists, your 4 journalists that you would say, if there's the 4 greatest of all time on the Mount Rushmore, this is who belongs on there. Who would you say they are?
For me, number 1, well, not in particular order, so it's 4. Barbara Walters has always inspired me. Ed Bradley would be 2. 3 would be Angie Martinez.
Hot 97, 105.1 Angie. That's right.
And then the last would probably be I like Woj. I like his information. So, I don't hate on him. And just the way he's revolutionized the game. I've studied him. So I know what it is. So yeah, those were my 4. Ed Bradley, Angie Martinez, Barbara Walters, Adrian Wojnarowski.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Scoop, thank you so much for, sparing me your time, brother. I appreciate this a lot. Being, the first guest on my podcast, considering this will only be an interview podcast when I have guests on. So I definitely think this was dope. Thank you for your time once again. Can't wait to see more of your work and what you've got rolling out. And I hope the Lakers could splash in on one of these guys that you mentioned and have a good free agency and bounce back next year.
For sure, my man. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
I appreciate you, brother. Have a good one.
All right, man. I'll talk to you.
Yes, sir.